Something changed. On February 17th, 2026, as astronomers at the Pan-STARRS Observatory in Hawaii conducted their routine sweep of the night sky, they detected an anomaly, a faint smudge of light where nothing had been just days before. At first, they thought it was just another near-Earth asteroid, one of thousands that drift through our cosmic neighborhood. But within hours, as observatories around the world turned their instruments toward this new visitor, the data started telling a different story. This wasn't from our solar system at all. The object's trajectory revealed a hyperbolic orbit, a mathematical certainty that this visitor came from interstellar space. Scientists designated it 1I 2026A1, nicknamed Oumuamua II, after its famous predecessor detected in 2017. But unlike the cigar-shaped Oumuamua that puzzled astronomers with its unusual acceleration and lack of visible outgassing, this new object seemed initially unremarkable. A roughly spherical body, approximately 3.7 kilometers in diameter, tumbling slowly through space, until it wasn't. 3 months after its discovery, as Oumuamua II crossed the orbit of Mars, something extraordinary happened. The object's brightness suddenly increased by a factor of 7 over just 48 hours. Spectroscopic analysis revealed not a comet's typical outgassing, but something far more dramatic. It was breaking apart. "We've never seen anything like this," said Dr. Elena Mikhailova, lead astronomer at the European Southern Observatory. "Comet's fragment, yes, but not like this. Not with this precision, not with this symmetry." The data streaming in from telescopes across the globe confirmed what seemed impossible. Oumuamua II had split into exactly 7 pieces of nearly identical size, 7 fragments, each now following slightly different trajectories, but all, without exception, heading directly toward Earth. Let me be clear about what this means. An object that traveled through the void between stars for potentially millions of years has, upon entering our solar system, broken into 7 equal parts, and every single one of those parts is now on a collision course with our planet. The probability of this occurring naturally, according to Dr. James Chen at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, effectively zero. This is where our story begins, not with a theory, not with speculation, but with hard data and the most disturbing question scientists have ever had to ask: what exactly is heading our way? Because what's unfolding now challenges everything we thought we understood about our place in the cosmos. The first person to realize something was truly wrong wasn't a senior scientist or government official. It was Priya Sharma, a 26-year-old postdoctoral researcher at Caltech's astronomy department, at 3:14 a.m. on May 7, 2026, while running trajectory simulations on the fragmented object. She noticed what everyone else had somehow missed. The fragments weren't just heading toward Earth in a general sense. Their calculated paths would bring all 7 pieces to our planet within the same 24-hour period in late October 2026. The statistical improbability of this was astronomical. "I thought I'd made a mistake," Priya later told me, her voice still carrying the echo of that night's disbelief. "I recalculated everything 3 times. I used different models, different variables. The result was always the same." By dawn, she had alerted her supervisor, Dr. Marcus Cohen, who immediately convened an emergency meeting with colleagues from NASA, ESA, and the Chinese National Space Administration. Within 48 hours, observatories worldwide had confirmed Priya's calculations: 7 fragments, 7 impact trajectories, all converging on Earth within a single rotation of our planet. The scientific community found itself divided into 3 camps almost immediately. The first, led by Dr. Wei Zhang at Beijing Observatory, maintained that despite the extraordinary coincidence, this was still a natural phenomenon, perhaps the result of some unknown physical process triggered by solar radiation or gravitational stress. "We must be careful not to let our human tendency toward pattern recognition lead us to false conclusions," Dr. Zhang cautioned during the first international conference on the Oumuamua II fragments. "The universe is full of coincidences that appear designed, but are merely the product of natural laws we don't yet fully understand." The second camp, smaller but growing daily as new data arrived, suggested something far more unsettling. Led by Harvard's Dr. Avi Loeb, who had famously proposed that the original Oumuamua might have been an alien artifact, this group pointed to the perfect symmetry of the fragments, their synchronized trajectories, and the mathematical precision of their approach. "We're looking at something that defies natural explanation," Dr. Loeb stated firmly. The fragments maintain constant distance from each other. Their rotation rates are identical. Even their albedo, the amount of light they reflect, is uniform across all 7 objects. Nature doesn't work with such precision. The third camp said nothing publicly at all. This group, consisting primarily of military and intelligence officials from various nations, had begun meeting behind closed doors within days of Priya's discovery. What they discussed remains classified, but multiple sources confirm they were already developing contingency plans for what they termed a potential first contact scenario. Meanwhile, as May turned to June, the fragments continued their approach, now visible through moderate amateur telescopes. Social media exploded with images, theories, and increasingly panicked speculation. Governments attempted to maintain calm, with carefully worded statements about natural celestial phenomena and no cause for public concern. But the data kept coming in, and it kept getting stranger. On June 12th, radio astronomers at the Green Bank Observatory in West Virginia detected something that changed the conversation entirely: faint but unmistakable radio emissions coming from the 7 fragments. Not random noise, but structured signals with a clear pattern, prime numbers, repeated in sequence. The signals lasted precisely 17 minutes before ceasing completely, when they resumed exactly 24 hours later, following the identical pattern before again falling silent. Even the most skeptical scientists found themselves confronting an uncomfortable possibility. Whatever was approaching Earth wasn't just passing through, it was coming here deliberately, and it wanted us to know. The world changed overnight. News of the radio signals leaked despite government efforts to contain the information, triggering what sociologists would later call the Great Awakening, a global shift in consciousness as humanity collectively processed the implications of potential contact with an extraterrestrial intelligence. Financial markets plummeted, then stabilized, then surged as investors speculated on technologies that might emerge from alien contact. Religious leaders issued statements ranging from apocalyptic warnings to messages of cosmic brotherhood. In the streets of major cities, people gathered, some in celebration, others in prayer, many simply seeking community in the face of the unknown. Dr. Eliza Montgomery, director of NASA's newly formed Interstellar Object Response Team, found herself thrust into the global spotlight as the scientific community's primary spokesperson. A 58-year-old astrophysicist with a reputation for unflappable calm, she became the face of humanity's response, delivering daily briefings that somehow managed to convey both the extraordinary nature of what was happening and a reassuring sense that we were prepared to handle it. Yes, we are detecting structured signals, she confirmed during a press conference that reached an estimated 4.2 billion viewers worldwide. Yes, these signals appear artificial in nature, but no, we cannot yet confirm the origin or purpose of these objects. We are analyzing all available data and working with international partners to establish communication protocols if that becomes possible. What Dr. Montgomery didn't reveal publicly was the content of the meetings taking place at the highest levels of government, meetings where military options were being discussed alongside diplomatic ones, where contingency plans for worst-case scenarios were being developed even as official statements emphasized peaceful possibilities. Because the truth was, no one knew what would happen when these objects reached Earth, and the stakes couldn't possibly be higher. July brought new revelations. As the fragments crossed the orbit of Venus, telescopes captured images showing subtle changes in their surface features. What had initially appeared to be rough, asteroid-like textures were smoothing out, revealing metallic surfaces that reflected sunlight with increasing efficiency. They're transforming, explained Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka from Japan's National Astronomical Observatory. Whatever these objects are, they're responding to their environment, adapting as they approach our planet. This adaptive behavior sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Not only were these objects clearly artificial, but they appeared to be active, perhaps even alive, in some sense we couldn't yet comprehend. Then came the heat signatures. Thermal imaging revealed that each fragment was maintaining a constant internal temperature of precisely 19 degrees Celsius, regardless of its distance from the sun or orientation in space. This temperature control required an energy source and regulatory system far beyond anything human technology could achieve. By August, amateur astronomers could spot the fragments with binoculars, 7 points of light moving in perfect formation against the backdrop of stars. People held watching parties, on rooftops and in fields, pointing out the approaching visitors to children who asked questions no one could answer. Are they coming to help us or hurt us? What do they want? Why 7 pieces? Why not 6 or 8? Questions that echoed in scientific conferences and government war rooms alike. Questions that haunted Dr. Montgomery as she tried to sleep between endless briefings and strategy sessions. Because the fragments kept sending their signals, now detected by radio telescopes worldwide. Always the same pattern of prime numbers. Always for exactly 17 minutes. Always precisely 24 hours apart. Until September 1st, when everything changed again. The signal pattern shifted. Instead of prime numbers, the fragments began transmitting what appeared to be a complex mathematical sequence. Teams of cryptographers and mathematicians worked around the clock to decode it, finally realizing it represented a three-dimensional coordinate system. "They're sending us an image," announced Dr. Fatima Al-Zahrani, lead cryptographer at the International Space Science Institute. Piece by piece, day by day, they're transmitting a complete three-dimensional representation of something. It took 2 weeks to compile enough data to render the image. When it finally appeared on screens at NASA headquarters, the room fell silent. It was Earth, a perfect, detailed model of our planet, accurate down to topographical features and ocean currents, but not Earth as it existed now. Earth as it would exist after the 7 fragments made contact. The image showed 7 impact sites distributed across the planet's surface, not craters or destruction zones as many had feared, but structures, geometric formations that appeared to rise from the landscape, connected by lines of energy or material that encircled the globe like a net. "They're showing us their intentions," Dr. Montgomery explained to the emergency session of the United Nations Security Council. "This isn't an attack, it's a construction project. But construction of what?" The image provided detail without context, showing the what but not the why. And with the fragments now just 6 weeks from arrival, the pressure to understand their purpose had never been greater. The projected impact sites became the focus of intense scrutiny. 7 locations, each with distinct geographical characteristics. 1. The Atacama Desert in Chile, one of the driest places on Earth. 2. The deep Pacific Ocean at the Mariana Trench. 3. The Siberian permafrost. 4. The East African Rift Valley. And 5. The Greenland ice sheet. 6. The Australian outback. 7. The Amazon rainforest. "They've selected environments representing every major ecosystem on our planet," observed Dr. Kwame Ose, an ecologist consulting with the UN response team. Desert, ocean depths, tundra, geological fault lines, ice caps, arid plains, and tropical forest. It's as if they're creating a network that interfaces with every type of environment Earth offers. Nations with territories containing impact sites found themselves in unprecedented diplomatic situations. Some, like Russia and China, immediately militarized the projected landing zones, establishing exclusion perimeters patrolled by armed forces. Others, including Chile and Brazil, took more cooperative approaches, inviting international scientific teams to establish observation posts. The United States, with no impact site on its territory, deployed carrier groups to international waters near several locations, citing global security concerns, while promising not to interfere with the object's arrival. Meanwhile, the fragments themselves continued their transformation. By late September, they had developed visible structures on their surfaces, protrusions and recesses that changed configuration daily. Their radio emissions became more complex, now including mathematical formulations that leading physicists recognized as advanced quantum field equations. "They're not just sending us information," said Dr. Richard Feynman III of MIT, grandson of the famous physicist. "They're teaching us. These equations describe principles of physics beyond our current understanding. It's like they're preparing us for what's coming." Public reaction to these developments varied wildly across different cultures and communities. Religious movements interpreting the visitors as divine messengers gained millions of followers. Preparation groups established communes near projected impact sites, hoping to be first to make contact. Conspiracy theorists warned of mind control and human harvesting. Yet surprisingly, global panic never materialized. Perhaps it was the measured tone of scientific communications, or perhaps humanity's collective imagination had been so prepared by decades of science fiction that the reality, however extraordinary, felt somehow familiar. Or perhaps it was simply that the visitors themselves, through their careful, methodical approach, their signals, their images, their equations, had managed to convey a crucial message without words. "We come with purpose, but not with threat." On October 1st, with the fragments now visible to the naked eye as bright stars moving across the night sky, they transmitted something new. Not numbers or coordinates, but a countdown sequence, 23 days until arrival. Dr. Elena Mikhailova hadn't slept properly in weeks. As the lead astronomer tracking the fragments approach, she found herself at the center of humanity's greatest scientific endeavor, coordinating observations from hundreds of telescopes, processing terabytes of data daily, and trying to extract meaning from the visitors' increasingly complex transmissions. Standing on the observation deck of the European Southern Observatory in Chile, just 180 kilometers from where Fragment 1 was projected to land in the Atacama Desert, she watched the seven lights move across the pre-dawn sky. To the unaided eye, they appeared as a perfect line of stars. Through the observatory's powerful telescopes, each fragment now revealed intricate surface details, geometric patterns that shifted and reconfigured like living architecture. They're preparing for atmospheric entry, she explained to the documentary crew that had been following her work. The surface changes we're observing appear to be creating heat shields and aerodynamic structures. These objects know exactly what they're doing. What troubled Elena wasn't the approaching fragments themselves, but the human response unfolding around her. The Chilean military had established checkpoints on all roads leading to the projected landing site. International scientific teams argued over observation protocols and data sharing agreements. Corporate representatives offered astronomical sums for exclusive access rights, and no one, not a single person among all these competing interests, could say with certainty what would happen when Fragment 1 touched down in just 18 days. "We're still thinking too small," she confided to her research assistant, Marco, as they reviewed the latest spectroscopic data. "Everyone's focused on what these objects want from us. But look at the energy readings we're getting now. These fragments could have destroyed our planet from a distance if that was their intention. Whatever they're building here, it's not about us. We're just the location they've chosen." Marco nodded thoughtfully. Like ants watching humans build a highway through their territory, the construction isn't about them, but it certainly changes their world. Exactly, and like those ants, we have two choices: scatter in panic or observe and adapt. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent call from NASA headquarters. Dr. Montgomery's face appeared on the video screen, her usual composure visibly strained. "Elena, are you seeing this? The fragments have changed their configuration again." Elena quickly pulled up the live feed from the orbital telescopes. The seven fragments, which had maintained their linear formation for months, were now arranging themselves into a perfect circle as they approached Earth. "It's like they're preparing for some kind of synchronized arrival," Elena murmured. "The mathematical precision is beautiful." "There's more," Dr. Montgomery continued. "The quantum equations they've been transmitting, our team finally completed the theoretical model. Elena, if we're interpreting this correctly, they're describing a method for controlled manipulation of spacetime itself." The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. They're not just building structures on Earth, they're building something that interfaces with the fabric of reality. "That's our working theory, and given their arrival timeline, we have less than 3 weeks to prepare for technology that could fundamentally alter our understanding of physics." Elena finished the thought. The countdown continued. 16 days, 15, 14. Around the world, preparations intensified. Temporary cities of scientists, military personnel, government officials, and accredited observers sprang up near each projected impact site. Space agencies coordinated the largest array of observation satellites ever deployed. Religious pilgrims gathered by the thousands, despite exclusion zones and security checkpoints. On day 13, the fragments transmitted a new signal, a complete molecular blueprint for an unknown compound. Biochemists identified it as a theoretical form of room-temperature superconductor, something human science had been pursuing for decades without success. "They're giving us technological gifts," Dr. Tanaka observed during the daily international briefing. But why? What do they expect in return? No one had an answer. The fragments maintained their circular formation, now clearly visible even in daylight, 7 bright points moving together across the sky. 10 days before arrival, they began descending from their previously stable orbit, dropping to an altitude of 10,000 kilometers. Their surfaces now glowed with internal energy, creating spectacular light displays visible across entire hemispheres. News networks broadcast continuous coverage. Schools closed. Productivity plummeted as billions of people found themselves unable to focus on anything but the approaching visitors. 7 days, 6, 5. The fragments descended further, now just 1,000 kilometers above Earth. Their signals changed again, transmitting what appeared to be operational instructions, step-by-step procedures for interacting with whatever they were about to build. 4 days, 3. Military forces worldwide were placed on high alert, not because any aggression had been detected, but because no one could predict how humans themselves might react when the moment of contact finally arrived. Reports of violence at security checkpoints increased. Religious extremists proclaimed the end times. 2 days. The fragments separated from their circular formation, each moving toward its designated landing site. Their signals ceased completely, replaced by an electromagnetic field that disrupted communications and power grids within a 100-kilometer radius of each projected impact point. One day, Elena Mikhailova found herself aboard a military helicopter, approaching the Atacama site, part of the official international observation team. Below her stretched the vast, rust-colored desert, ancient, dry, and soon to become the focal point of humanity's first confirmed extraterrestrial contact. 12 hours to projected landing, the pilot announced over the intercom. Elena checked her equipment one last time. Radiation detectors, spectrometers, high-speed cameras. Whatever was about to happen, she was determined to document it for science, for history, for the future of a human civilization that would never be the same after today. As darkness fell over the desert, Fragment 1 became visible as a brilliant blue-white star, descending slowly through the atmosphere, defying the physics of conventional atmospheric entry with no visible heat signature or sonic boom. 8 hours. 6, 4. The observation camp buzzed with tense energy. Military helicopters circled the perimeter. Scientists calibrated instruments. Government officials whispered into secure phones. 2 hours. Fragment 1 hovered just 1 kilometer above the desert floor, a perfect sphere of swirling metallic surfaces and pulsing light. Below it, the ground began to glow with the same blue-white energy. 1 hour. Elena's instruments recorded radiation levels climbing, not dangerous ionizing radiation, but complex electromagnetic patterns, unlike anything in scientific records. 30 minutes. The desert itself began to change, sand and rock reconfiguring at the molecular level, forming crystalline structures that grew upward toward the hovering fragment. 10 minutes. Around the world, the other 6 fragments had reached similar stages in their approach, each interacting with their chosen environment in unique ways. In the Mariana Trench, ocean water swirled in impossible vortices. In Siberia, the permafrost glowed from within. In the Amazon, trees bent without wind, forming patterns visible from space. 5 minutes. "This is it," Elena whispered, though there was no one close enough to hear her. "This is first contact." 1 minute. Fragment 1 descended the final distance, making contact with the crystalline structures rising from the desert floor. There was no impact, no explosion, just a perfect melding of the visitor with the transformed landscape. And then, as identical scenes played out at 6 other locations across the planet, something happened that no one had predicted. The world went silent. For exactly 7 seconds, all electronic devices on Earth stopped functioning. Communications systems, power grids, even battery-operated equipment, everything went dark. 7 seconds of absolute technological silence across the entire planet. When systems came back online, the fragments were gone. In their place at each landing site stood structures unlike anything humans had ever built. Geometric formations of crystalline material that rose from the landscape, pulsing with internal energy and connected by visible beams of light that arced through the atmosphere, linking all 7 sites in a global network. In the Atacama Desert, Elena Mikhailova stood transfixed before the structure that had replaced Fragment 1. Rising nearly 300 meters from the desert floor, it resembled a lattice of interlocking hexagons, each filled with a material that shifted between solid, liquid, and gaseous states in rhythmic patterns. At its center, a sphere of brilliant light hovered, apparently unsupported. It's beautiful," Marco whispered beside her, his scientific detachment momentarily abandoned in the face of such otherworldly perfection. Elena could only nod, her mind racing to process what her eyes were seeing. The structure wasn't static. It was in constant motion, parts of it reconfiguring themselves even as they watched, and it was interacting with its environment, drawing in sand and minerals from the desert, incorporating them into its expanding framework. Similar reports came in from the other 6 sites. Each structure was unique in form, adapted to its specific environment, yet clearly part of a unified system. The structure in the Mariana Trench generated a column of altered seawater that rose to the ocean's surface. The one in Greenland had already melted a perfect circular area in the ice sheet, revealing what appeared to be a new type of energy-generating mechanism beneath. They're not monuments, Elena realized, speaking her thoughts aloud as her scientific training reasserted itself. They're machines, functional technology, but what do they do? That question echoed across the scientific community as the first 24 hours after landing passed. Preliminary readings showed massive energy generation at all 7 sites, but with no detectable waste heat or radiation, a violation of thermodynamic principles as humans understood them. More disturbing was the discovery that the structures were expanding. Slowly but measurably, they were growing, incorporating Earth materials, and extending their influence outward from each landing site. Military forces maintained their perimeters, but no one dared approach too closely. After initial readings showed molecular level changes in the air and soil surrounding each structure. Not destruction or contamination, but transformation, matter being reorganized according to patterns that human science couldn't yet comprehend. 48 hours after landing, the structures activated. It began with a pulse of energy that circled the planet along the network of light connecting all 7 sites. Satellites captured the image of Earth, momentarily encircled by a glowing web. Then, each structure emitted a vertical beam of light that extended into the upper atmosphere. They're reaching into space, Dr. Montgomery observed during the Emergency Scientific Council meeting. But why? What are they connecting to? The answer came 3 hours later, when astronomical observatories detected a distortion in space approximately 150,000 kilometers from Earth, a ripple in the fabric of reality itself that expanded into what could only be described as an opening, a gateway between stars. It's a transportation system, Dr. Loeb announced, his earlier theories now seemingly confirmed. These structures aren't an invasion force or a colony, they're building a network, connecting Earth to other points in the galaxy. This revelation triggered immediate security concerns. If these structures had created a doorway to other star systems, what might come through it? The answer, when it came, was nothing anyone expected. 72 hours after landing, the gateway activated. A pulse of energy traveled from the structures up through their atmospheric beams and into the spatial distortion. For several minutes, nothing else happened. Then a signal arrived, not from the structures or the gateway, but from deep space, beyond our solar system. A transmission directed specifically at Earth's existing communication systems, formatted in a way our technology could immediately decode. The message was simple. Humanity, the network is now operational. You may begin exploration when ready. Coordinates for 17 habitable worlds are included in this transmission. Welcome to the galactic community. The implications were staggering. The structures weren't a prelude to invasion. They weren't monitoring devices or resource extraction systems. They were a gift, a transportation network connecting Earth to distant star systems, built by an intelligence that had apparently been observing humanity long enough to determine we were ready for such technology, or perhaps, some scientists suggested, ready to be contained by it. Because the question remained, why would an advanced civilization provide such technology to a species as volatile and unpredictable as humans? Was it truly an act of cosmic benevolence, or something more complex? This could be a test, suggested Dr. Wei Zhang during the UN emergency session convened to address the message. Perhaps these gateways are provided to all developing technological civilizations. Those who use them wisely join this galactic community. Those who don't, he left the sentence unfinished, but his meaning was clear. The debate over how to respond consumed governments worldwide. Some nations advocated immediate exploration, sending probes and eventually human missions through the gateway. Others urged caution, extensive testing, and the development of international protocols before any attempt at interstellar travel. Meanwhile, the structures continued their subtle transformation of the surrounding environments. In the Amazon, plant life near the structure exhibited accelerated growth and novel properties. In the Mariana Trench, previously unknown marine organisms began to appear in the altered water column. In the Atacama, the desert soil showed increasing organic content, as if the structure were terraforming its surroundings. They're changing Earth to be more compatible with the network, Elena hypothesized after 3 weeks of continuous observation at the Atacama site. Not drastically, not harmfully, but optimizing conditions around each node. Her research team had documented thousands of subtle alterations in the local ecosystem, changes that rippled outward from the structure in concentric circles. None seemed dangerous. In fact, many appeared beneficial, increasing biodiversity and environmental resilience. But they were changes nonetheless, implemented without consultation or consent. 2 months after the structure's arrival, the United Nations finally reached a consensus on humanity's initial response. A series of robotic probes would be sent through the gateway, following the coordinates provided in the alien transmission. No human missions would be attempted until these probes had returned data confirming the safety and conditions of the destination worlds. The first probe, a joint project of NASA, ESA, and the Chinese National Space Administration, was transported to the Atacama site amid unprecedented security and media attention. Named Emissary, it carried scientific instruments, communication equipment, and a message of peaceful intention from the people of Earth. Elena watched from the observation center as the probe was positioned near the structure. No one knew exactly how the transportation system worked or how to activate it for a specific destination. The provided coordinates were clear, but the interface remained a mystery until the structure itself solved the problem. As Emissary approached within 100 meters, a pathway of light extended from the crystalline formation, creating what appeared to be a designated approach route. When the probe followed this path, it was gently lifted from the ground and drawn into the central sphere of energy at the structure's core. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. Then, the vertical beam connecting the structure to the spatial gateway pulsed with increased intensity. Emissary was on its way to another star system, 31 light-years from Earth. Under normal physics, even at light speed, the journey would take 31 years. But the probe's telemetry continued to transmit without any relativistic time dilation effects. Whatever this transportation system was, it operated outside the known laws of physics. 3 hours after entering the Atacama structure, Emissary sent its first transmission from another world. The images showed a landscape of breathtaking beauty, rolling plains covered in vegetation unlike anything on Earth, under the light of a yellow-orange sun. The atmosphere contained oxygen, nitrogen, and trace gases in proportions similar to, but not identical with Earth's. Gravity registered at 1.2 times Earth normal, and there were structures visible on the horizon, crystalline formations remarkably similar to the ones now installed on Earth. Subsequent probes to other coordinates revealed similar findings, habitable worlds, each with its own unique characteristics, all connected by the same network of transportation structures. Some showed evidence of settlements or cities, though no direct contact with other intelligent species occurred during these initial explorations. 6 months after the fragment's arrival, the UN approved the first human mission through the gateway. A team of 12 specialists, scientists, linguists, diplomats, and military observers would travel to the closest and seemingly most Earth-like of the 17 worlds, designated HD 8552b. Dr. Elena Mikhailova was selected as the mission's lead scientist, a recognition of her continuous work studying the Atacama structure since its formation. "I never imagined I'd be traveling to another star system," she confided to Marco the night before departure. "I always thought I'd spend my career studying distant worlds through telescopes, never setting foot on one." "Are you afraid?" he asked. She considered the question carefully. "Not of what we'll find there. The probes have shown it's physically safe. I'm more concerned about what this means for humanity. We're being given access to technology we don't understand, to worlds we're not evolved to inhabit. We're like children being handed the keys to a very powerful vehicle." "You think we're not ready?" "I think we don't have a choice anymore. The network exists. The gateway is open. If we don't explore it, someone else will. The question isn't whether humanity should take this step, it's whether we can do so wisely." The next morning, Elena and her 11 teammates stood before the Atacama structure, clad in expedition gear designed for an alien environment. Behind them, a global audience watched through live broadcasts as humans prepared to step through the stars for the first time. The structure extended its pathway of light, just as it had for the robotic probes. One by one, the team members walked forward, each disappearing into the central energy sphere. Elena was the last to enter. At the threshold, she paused and looked back at the desert that had been her home for the past 6 months, at the scientists and officials watching with bated breath, at the world that had raised her, educated her, shaped her into the person who now stood at the boundary between humanity's past and its future. Then she stepped forward, into light. The journey itself was both instantaneous and eternal. Later, Elena would struggle to describe the experience, a moment of perfect stillness in which she somehow perceived the vast distances being traversed, the folding of spacetime around her, the passage through dimensions beyond human perception. Then she was standing on another world. The air smelled of unfamiliar spices and minerals. The gravity pulled slightly harder at her body. The sunlight cast everything in a golden hue that made the landscape seem like something from a dream. Her teammates stood nearby, equally transfixed by their surroundings. Before them stretched rolling plains covered in vegetation that resembled Earth's grasses, but with a bluish tinge. In the distance, mountains rose against the horizon, their peaks wreathed in clouds, and directly ahead stood another structure, a crystalline formation identical to the one they had entered on Earth, its network of light pulsing in patterns that somehow seemed welcoming. "We made it," breathed Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka, the team's xenobiologist. "We're standing on a planet orbiting another star." Their instruments confirmed what the probes had reported: breathable atmosphere, tolerable radiation levels, no immediate biological hazards. This world, while alien, was surprisingly hospitable to human life. As the team began their preliminary survey, setting up monitoring equipment and collecting samples, Elena found herself drawn to the local structure. Like its Earth counterpart, it pulsed with internal energy and continuously reconfigured aspects of its crystalline lattice, but here, it seemed more integrated with the surrounding ecosystem. The blue-tinged vegetation grew in perfect geometric patterns around its base, and local fauna, small six-limbed creatures that resembled a cross between insects and mammals, moved freely through its lower levels. "This has been here much longer than our structures," Elena noted, recording her observations. "It's fully integrated with the local environment. I'd estimate at least several centuries of coevolution." 3 days into their expedition, as the team expanded their exploration radius, they made their most significant discovery. Beyond a ridge approximately 12 kilometers from their arrival point, they found evidence of intelligent habitation, structures built from local materials, arranged in community patterns, with clear signs of technology use, but no inhabitants. "It's like they just left," observed Dr. Fatima al-Zahrani, examining what appeared to be a communal dwelling. "There's no sign of conflict or disaster. Everything is simply empty." Further exploration revealed the same pattern throughout the settlement. Homes, workshops, what appeared to be scientific facilities, all meticulously maintained but completely abandoned. "Perhaps they evacuated temporarily when they detected our arrival," suggested Colonel Zhao, the Chinese military observer, "a precautionary measure." But Elena suspected something else, a theory that grew stronger as they discovered data storage devices containing what appeared to be historical records. While they couldn't yet translate the alien language, the visual components told a compelling story. This civilization had received their transportation network much as Earth had, through the arrival of fragments that constructed the structures. The records showed celebrations, scientific advancements, and eventually interstellar journeys. Then, gradually, population decline, not through disaster, but through emigration. The inhabitants had increasingly left their homeworld to explore or settle elsewhere in the network. "They didn't die out," Elena explained during the team's evening conference. "They expanded outward. This world became just one node in their civilization, not its center." "Are you suggesting the same will happen to Earth?" asked Dr. Montgomery, who was participating via communication link from the Atacama Control Center. "I'm suggesting that's one possible outcome. This transportation network doesn't just connect worlds, it fundamentally changes how a species relates to its homeworld. When you can step between stars in moments, the concept of a single planetary home becomes optional." The implications of this theory sent ripples of concern through both the expedition team and the authorities back on Earth. Humanity had always defined itself in relation to its planet. What would it mean for our species if Earth became just one world among many accessible destinations? On their 7th day, on HD 85512b, as the team prepared to return with their preliminary findings, they received an unexpected transmission through the structure's communication system. Not from Earth, but from deeper in the network. The message was simple, translated into basic mathematical concepts that transcended language barriers. "Travelers from Earth, you have taken your first steps. When you are ready for dialogue, proceed to coordinates enclosed. Representatives of the network founders will meet you there." Attached were navigational coordinates for another world, much deeper in the network, a central hub where apparently the creators of this interstellar transportation system waited to officially welcome humanity. We should proceed immediately, urged Colonel Zhao. This opportunity— No, Elena interrupted firmly. We return to Earth as planned. We analyze our findings. We prepare properly. If these network founders have waited this long to meet us, they can wait while we proceed carefully. Her caution prevailed. The next day, the team returned through the structure, emerging from the Atacama installation to a hero's welcome. Their data, samples, recordings, and the invitation from the network founders became the most studied scientific material in human history. Nations debated, scientists theorized, religious leaders interpreted, and ordinary people around the world watched the structures with new understanding, not as alien impositions, but as doorways to a vastly larger universe. 3 months later, after extensive preparation and international negotiation, a new expedition departed Earth, a carefully selected team of 27 individuals representing Earth's diverse nations, disciplines, and perspectives. Their destination, the coordinates provided by the network founders. Elena Mikhailova once again led the scientific contingent, her experience on HD 85512b making her the human with the most direct knowledge of extraterrestrial environments. As she prepared to step through the Atacama structure for the second time, a journalist asked her the question everyone wanted answered. Dr. Mikhailova, are you afraid of what you'll find, of who created this network and why they've connected Earth to it? Elena considered her answer carefully, aware that her words would be remembered by history. I'm not afraid, she finally replied. I'm curious. Humanity has always looked to the stars and wondered if we're alone. Now we know we're not. The question is no longer whether other intelligent life exists, but how we'll participate in the community of worlds these structures have revealed. And if their intentions aren't benevolent, Elena smiled slightly. Then we'll face that challenge, as we've faced every other throughout our history, with courage, intelligence, and adaptability. But consider this: a civilization capable of building a transportation network across stars chose to give us access rather than conquest. That suggests a foundation for cooperation, not conflict. With those words, she turned and walked into the light of the structure, leading humanity toward its next great encounter, and whatever future awaited among the stars. The 7 fragments that had split from Oumuamua II had changed Earth forever, not through destruction, but through connection. They had brought not an ending, but a beginning, the first chapter in humanity's story as a truly interstellar species. And somewhere, in the vast network of connected worlds, the architects of this grand design waited to welcome the newest travelers to paths between the stars.